Alright, so I just gotta kick the video off with this. I'm not gonna be covering this whole budget cap breach thing unless something major happens, which I just don't actually see happening. I'll cover it as a formality in a GP observations, of course. But otherwise, there's no real reason to be making like a standalone video on it. Why is that? Because, well, I watched the Peter Winslow video, right? And the most poignant point that he made for me was that, well, we're never gonna know just how far over budget Red Bull actually were. We're never gonna know. What I saw reported was 1.8 mil. There's other reports saying 3 mil, 8 mil. You know, it's straight up 8 million. So we're never gonna know. They're obviously going to do some sort of backdoor agreement with the FIA, otherwise this wouldn't be taking so long, or it would have already hit the courts. And I mean, Mercedes and Ferrari posturing, and even McLaren posturing, like these guys, they just have skin in the game, right? Of course, Mercedes, they were in the championship fight for 2021, and the other two, well, they found themselves on the wrong side of the rules and been punished harshly, and they probably want some sort of similar punishment going in Red Bull's direction. It's all fair. It's all fair in this F1 thing. So there's all that going on. The likes of Alpine, I mean Williams and Tracy Martin, they're keeping their heads low, of course. But the likes of Alpine, they aren't saying anything. Haas, Gunther, he's just talking about getting more American races. Oh, we need more American races on the calendar. 3 isn't enough. 3, you got 3, bro. Which other country has 3? What do you mean it's not enough anyway? So that's what Gunther's doing. Alpine are pretending they never had any suspicions of anyone being over budget. It's a big shock to Alpine. even though it was Otmar who was talking all this jive about teams needing to learn how to budget early on in the season. So now he's changing his tune, and yeah, everyone else is pretty much keeping their heads low. All right, everyone's simply watching and waiting to see what exactly the FIA do here. I don't see them doing anything. All right, because here's the thing, right? I would like to see them, of course, strip Verstappen of championship and hand the championship to Sir Lewis Hamilton. It should have happened already. The fact it's not happening tells me it's not. What I expect to happen is for them to fetch a fine, some sort of big fine. I wonder what sort of fine would be big enough to actually deter other teams. I don't even think if they made $100 million fine that would deter teams, because some of these teams' yearly programs, had budgets of $500 million or approaching $500 million, so that would be within budget. Yeah, I'm not entirely sure what the FIA, FOM and friends are going to do. I don't particularly care. I don't particularly see them doing anything that changes narratives or what have you. I posted this whole top 50 most marketable athletes thing. There's a train of thought running in my head that says, well, F1 probably wants to get Verstappen out of the fucking limelight for a second, because he's turning out to be a toxic addition to the winner's rostrum. So there's a train of thought where they want to move him out the way. Of course, he's got the lowest brand strength of all the athletes that were in the top 50, just by the way. You know, you wouldn't suspect it. He's reigning world champion, and he's got the lowest brand strength of all the top 50 athletes. The F1 drivers who are not even champion. I mean, Leclerc is more marketable than Maximilian. That's already a huge red flag for F1 and this Maximilian situation. So there is a train of thought that they want him out the limelight, and they're gonna usher him and Red Bull, shuffle them out of the way for a few seasons with, who knows, a $200 million fine or something, and you've got a restricted budget for a few seasons. Like what an $80 million budget. Who knows? They might run something like that. I don't actually expect them to. And I don't expect them to change any championship results. I just don't see that happening. If they do, then who knows? People might tune in for this new F1. But anyway, that's not what I'm talking about today. And we're not talking budget caps and all this nonsense. That's not going to go fucking anywhere. We're not talking any of that. What are we going to talk about? I say this old FF1 video has been, well, I say it's old, like, this was posted years ago, right? Maybe this is just the way things move here. But this FF1 video been playing over in my head. Why the Europeans won't forward a black driver to F1. Alright, so I've cooked this up. It's the missing European driver, the cost of fundamentals, and power brokers. Where's the pipeline of black drivers in the motorsports hierarchy? Well, it's being built up right now, number one. But why haven't the Europeans done it, on behalf of? Well, allow me to elucidate. One, because racing is expensive. It's damn expensive. It's not like football or basketball or even American football or hockey, where I suppose you might have kit and equipment provided to you by whoever's running the program, be it a school or a club. These sports, they're wildly inexpensive compared to motorsports. And that matters when the initial bill is mostly footed by the family. That matters. For football, really, you need nothing but the streets, right? You got some streets, there's a kid somewhere on the block who owns a football, and who knows, one of those kids might get enough touches to become a star, who knows? Although touches are just at a premium by design in all these environments. Anyway, Wenger has a quote about footballers regarding when they should have fundamental technique to play the game.
There's a famous quote from you about players' development being like the foundations of a house, with the head being the roof. I didn't really get it.
You didn't really get it?
No.
But it's in fact very simple. You build a player like you build a house with a basement. The basis of a player is the technique. You get that between 7 and 14 years of age. If you have no technical skill at 14, you can forget it. You will never be a football player.
Yeah.
Right, he says by 14, if you don't have the tech, you should simply give up. Same thing applies for motorsport. So how does one get the fundamentals for motorsport? Well, it's not from your national driving license, unless it's perhaps the Finnish driving license. Right, you can probably become a rally driver with that thing. It's no accident that the Finns have such a high instance of F1 race winners, right? I mean, even Heikki Kovalainen and Mika Salo have race wins, but I digress. Well, motorsports fundamentals are developed in karting, and at the same age as an aspiring footballer, right? Your 7 to 14 age bracket. So it's on your own household to fund that, just like it is for the white man in his own household. Got to fund those escapades. It's all in the household to foot the bill for a relatively competitive karting program. You might have an angel investor here or there, but those are so rare for junior karters, so rare. Like, that would have had to have been someone's project from the jump, right? And by the jump, I mean maybe even before conception, right? But otherwise, angel investors are super rare for junior karters, and the government is not going to fund anyone's motorsports ambitions unless, I suppose, it's a petro state running a vanity project. Look at Maldonado for reference there. Why is that? Why won't they fund these escapades? Well, because the asset might die. Very simply, right? Motorsports is not, is much more likely you die driving a car real fast, even on a vetted circuit, than it is you die kicking a football around. Right now, of course, you could die in any sport. Right? These things happen for various reasons, but it's very unlikely that it's the sport that kills you in all these other activities that could be partaken in. It's very unlikely that it's the sport itself that kills the asset, right? Some people might ask, oh, how do they MK Ultra? Well, they use natural scouting and they just approach families. The world is dark out there, believe me. If you want some proof that families would actually sell their kids to this whole MK Ultra scheme and scenario, I mean, have a look at Gretchen Thunberg, right? I'm calling her Gretchen, right? That's staying for me. No one's gonna get me off of that. But have a look at Gretchen Thunberg. She's now doing The whole one eye, one eye open thing. Of course, you got a left eye open. I'll throw some images. All right, left hand side, right hand side. It's all the same side. Well, it's all just a different side of the same coin. All right, the left hand and the right hand side. So don't get too bogged down in all of that. Likewise, all of those Vanity Fair drivers, they're on the boat. As far as the secret Kabbalah and this and all this symbolism that you see in these in these elite circles, right? They're all on board. All of those Vanity Fair drivers. I might make a vid on that some other time. Right? Sides pending for some of them. Some of them we know they're left aligned or right aligned or whatever you. I mean, just remember at the end of the day that the board is made of red and blue squares. They're all part of the same game. But I digress. I mean, lads, even setting up a karting circuit is expensive, and it's generally someone's hobby project if it's not attached to a racing circuit. Right? Who is that karting circuit going to service? Some 10k kids and hobbyists? That's a very ambitious estimation, right? That's highball. A tarmac has to be laid down for this project. This is not a football. It's not a football pitch, so even the facilities are at a premium to go and develop the fundamentals for motorsports, right? I mean, a basketball court at least doesn't take up space, all that much space. Well, it does take up space, but not all that much space. And you don't have to lay down tarmac for it, right? An ice rink can service civilians. Likewise, a pitch for any sport can simply be attached to a school or a club, right? And what does the household have to provide? Because you have to provide a competitive karting program. Right, and likewise, because only your own household can get you into the motorsports hierarchy. Well, a kart, for one, and there's fuel, transport, kart maintenance, gear such as overalls and helmets and gloves, new tires for each race weekend if you have budget for that, add some practice weekends with new tires, entrance fees for championships. This is on top of keeping a home afloat and kids in school, right? Karting is damn expensive, and it's where all the fundamentals are built for the sport. If you never even had a chance of karting, you know, 9,999 times out of 10,000, you're not the guy who's gonna somehow magic into the top flight of motorsport without all of those fundamentals being developed. Right? Of course, a good name and some bravery or stupidity, you know, pending whichever side you wanna fall on, that can go a long way. Look at a Bruno Senna, for instance. All right, that's a vanity project if ever there was one. Well, he's got the Senna name, right? He never did any karting, and he started racing really late, right? So I suppose it's impressive that he even made it to F1 for someone to consider this vanity project viable. But I digress. Now, of course, it's more layered, right, than simply, oh, you've got to get to the karting circuit with a competitive program, right? It's more layered than that, because the black man, he doesn't control his own local economy, so racing is even more expensive for him if he wishes to play ball. You're not going to get discounts for having the complexion for that specific connection, right? There's no black-owned karting store anyway. There's none of that, so you're not going to get that. You're not going to get discounts for new tires for a race weekend. Oh well. You might get that if you become really friendly with someone. Really friendly. But otherwise, that's really not an option that you should be budgeting for. Right? Because you just don't have that option. And there's no avenues to even explore that option. Right? These are other problems that are far lower down the hierarchy of needs as far as it relates to the black community. Right, you gotta have your own local economy being controlled by your own locals. Can't be the Arab guy comes in and he's running a store. Can't be the Chinese guy comes and he's running a store. Right, that can't be happening. I mean, look at how the Chinese move, right? Look at how the Asians move. Anywhere that they settle in numbers, there's Chinatown pops up. What's that? How does that get there? It's everywhere. Everyone else. There's even one here in South Africa. Would you believe? Anyway, the issue of the black man not controlling his own economy, I mean, it's even illustrated by the Black Little Mermaid fiasco that's going on currently. We aren't getting an original. We're getting a reskin. Why won't they give us an original? Because one, they don't care enough. 2, they don't have cultural references to write an original, they being white liberals. And 3, they just aren't gonna trust the black man with writing his own original story because, well, you're probably gonna put some stuff that's off message with their political messaging, and all of a sudden, oh, the black people jump off the democratic plantation, right? So why won't they let the black man write his own original? Because he's too based, and he's not going to be on message with liberal politics, right? And he's going to say some shit that, ooh, shouldn't have said that, and all of a sudden it breaks the whole liberal ideology, right? I mean, look, you're not even permitted to control your own information, right, as regards to propaganda and culture. That only comes from top-down control. Same issue in junior motorsports for the black man. There are no black players in the system to serve as power brokers or as info brokers or as opportunity brokers. And I suppose I should cover what a power broker does right about now. What does a power broker do? A power broker guards opportunity so that it goes to the right person. If you want an example of a power broker in modern F1, then look at Nicholas Todd, right? He's the manager of Charles Leclerc right now. They won't say it out loud, right? But he gets first dibs for his drivers on Ferrari seats because they are Todd scouted drivers. It's actually Jean Todt still working at Ferrari secretly, right? Off the books. Currently, Nicholas Todd is managing Kvyat, Massa, Maldonado. That PDVSA money was good, I suppose. And Leclerc. Alright, before Leclerc had been cooked up, he said, put Kimi in the seat. Alright? Kvyat, he landed at Ferrari in test driver role. Why is that? Well, because Nicholas Todd is there. But I digress. When the supposed incoming talent pool of young black drivers come through, they're going to need power brokers in the motorsports hierarchy who have bookmarked seats for them. They do it. Who's they? The white man, the Asians, they do it. So you got to do it too, black man. And just for posterity, they're not wrong for doing it. Right? Seats are too limited in motorsports despite having such a high financial bar for entry. Right? Are there allies to be found for the black man in motorsports? Who knows? Zach Brown is probably one. Expect him to sign one of these young black upstarts and try to replicate what Ron Dennis achieved with Sir Lewis Hamilton. Although I'm incorrect in calling him an ally, he's running his own vanity project, I suppose, right, in that regard. But aside from that, everyone is just chasing their own ambitions, right? And by the way, it's when the young European or American driver gets into junior formula that you start seeing your in-out group preference start playing a role. Some folks would call it racism for white Brit to fund a young white Brit lad's junior racing career and have a permanent sponsorship slot on his career overalls or helmet. Right? It's not really, but it's not. It's not really racism. It's not even nepotism, which is also fair game in F1. Right? In-group preference was needed for survival before we tamed Darwinian conditions. It was needed to be able to distinguish friend from foe, along with, who do I actually aid and who do I not aid. That was necessary. Right? You're never going to get rid of it, because you're going to need it when either the World War III drafts start, or heck, if the aliens land 1,000 years from now and they're hostile, you're going to need it. Right? Interesting note for the times, we live in an era where more people without group preference have ever been permitted to live before. Not that there are more people without group than in-group preference, right? Just that there are more out-group preference people by some percentage points than have ever existed before, right? What happened to them in the ancient times? They got killed, either by a rival tribe, village, settlement, or by their own loose slippery at home. It's also funny everyone has been autopiloted into a group of matching skin at some point in their lives. Skin and kin, it's only one letter difference, but it's really no different at all. Nowadays, the dividing lines are becoming cultural instead of racial, but we'll see if that course actually maintains. Anyway, rather than call that racism, because it frankly isn't, you likewise should employ such avenues for your young proteges, black man. F1 is not like the field sports, right? Making one dream comes true probably means killing someone else's. You aren't going to go from playing number 10 to playing CDM and still find a trophy in F1, right? That you don't get to make a move like that. By the way, as things stand, Sir Lewis Hamilton, he will become a power broker in motorsports, even by accident, right? And there will be a lot of hype around any young drivers that come through, whichever institute Sir Lewis Hamilton so associates himself with in the future, right? And we'll see what happens, right? Zach Brown, as I mentioned, he's also positioning himself to have the next black driver in F1. Anyway, the Europeans, they're not forwarding black drivers to F1 because one, it isn't their job to forward a black driver to F1, right? That's on household. your own household has to get that whole journey underway. Two, the talent pool doesn't exist yet. It's being built up. It's being developed right now as we speak, but it doesn't exist yet. And three, even if there is talent currently, there are no power brokers in the space to hold a seat for a black driver. Ron Dennis, this is the whole anomaly here. Ron Dennis, he held a seat for Sir Lewis Hamilton, but only on account of a chance meeting that he had with the young Sir Lewis Hamilton as he was picking up a Young Driver Award, a chance meeting. But anyway, how do you fix these? You gotta do it yourself. You gotta get yourself in the space. You gotta get your own you gotta get your own people in the space with your own hand, and no one else is gonna do it for you. They've got their own ambitions, and frankly, you wouldn't want them doing it for you anyway. They would run a vanity project instead of a real winning ambition for a project. Anyway, that's the vid. Peace.
Hell breezy. Let me show you how to keep the dice rolling when you're doing that thing over there, homie. Hey, let's go! Cause I'm feeling like I'm running and I'm feeling like I gotta get away. Better know that I don't and I won't ever stop. Cause you know I gotta win every day. Go! See, you really wanna pop me. Go! Just know that you will never flop me. And I know that I gotta be a little cocky. Go! You ain't never gonna stop me. Every time I come a nigga gotta set it, then I gotta go and then I gotta get it, then I gotta blow and then I gotta shut it. Any little thing a nigga think that he be doing, cause it doesn't matter, cause I'm gonna dead it. Then I'm gonna murder everything and anything about it. Boom, about a bing. I gotta do a lot of things to make it clearer to a couple niggas that I always win and then I gotta get it again and again and again. And I be doing it to death and now I move a little foul. Nigga better call a ref and everybody know my style. Niggas know that I'm the best when it comes to doing this and I be banging on my chest and I bang in the east and I banging in the west and I can't give you more and I will never give you less. You will hear it in the street and you can read it in the press. Do you really wanna know what's next? Let's go. See the way we on it and we all up in the race and you know we gotta go now try to keep up with the pace and we struggling and hustling and sell it and get it and we always gotta do it, take it to another place, gotta taste it and I gotta grab it and I gotta cut all through this traffic just to be at the top of the dome, but I know I gotta have it.